Hello.
He's really, really rad.
He met Proop's dad.
You'll know him from Greece.
When asked about the Me Too movement, he said he didn't know anything about it because he tries not to think about gender or race.
Allegedly. It's Proop and Murph's Travoltathon.
Welcome everybody to episode 11 of the Proop and Murph Travoltathon. What did we watch today?
Well, we watched Going Clear.
Going Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief.
Funny you should say clear : because in the last episode, Look Who's Talking, we had a clear internal passage as well.
You ninny. We did cats last episode. There were no clear
could I
colons. There were no colons in the last because there were no bumholes on the cats.
No sex before marriage.
This is a documentary about the Church of Scientology. It's got interviews with people who've been in Scientology and some people who've left.
They are all ex-Scientologists. There's no one that's currently in the church as of when this was made.
It goes into all the kind of things that they try and cover up, all the strange beliefs that they have. L. Ron Hubbard,
The founder.
the founding father of it. He goes into his past a lot, which is very interesting because he was some screwed up bloke.
He's just like a sci-fi author, and most of his ideas are based on ideas he had previously for works of fiction. It's not like most religions which are built on actual divine intervention. It's based on one man's view of the world.
What was the whole thing about L. Ron Hubbard and this Satanist sex magic stuff?
He was momentarily in an actual satanic cult, and he dated the sister of the guy who was in charge of it. He was sort of like a Charles Manson kind of guy, and he had this idea that he could spawn the Antichrist.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because Scientology is like anti-spiritual. It's kind of the opposite of what is in a usual religion, because they've got the whole thing about these Thetan beings that come into your body. But the whole process that you're supposed to go to become clear is to try and remove or repress all of these spirits that are inhabiting you, of these alien beings. It's all oriented around getting money and being, tax-free. Because it's all centered around like real world tangible things, they are able to be so successful in terms of like money and power and real world dominance. Like, he's on record as saying that the best way of making money is to make a tax exempt religion.
A lot of this documentary is dedicated to them becoming tax exempt, because it was a point of contention for a while. Like, they were battling against the IRA, and they eventually...
Yeah, no, it was the IRS. I'm pretty sure the IRA is that Irish terrorist group or something.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the catchphrase?
Yeah, I did like the way that as they moved through time, they sort of changed the focus of the film. Like, the entire thing didn't focus on L. Ron Hubbard. It sort of started off like that, and then when he starts going into hiding, it sort of fades away from talking about him, and then it starts going into more of the actual beliefs, and then to current day, that's when it starts focusing more on the controversies, because that's when it ended up being more in the news.
And it's good the way they do that, because it's like when you join Scientology, it's not like Christianity or something where you're supposed to read the Bible straight away. You're not supposed to know all of these things about the beliefs they have about, what is the world and the afterlife until you reach a certain like level of like these OT levels. It's all very corporate. It seems like a parody. Like, they've got the text that says Scientology is the Hollywood Hill kind of text, and then they've got the crucifix.
It sort of looks like Impact. Their entire like headquarters looks like a meme. Scientology bottom text. They get to this certain level, they've donated a certain amount of money, they've got so many thetans out of their body, and they're told the earth was created millions of years ago. It was like desolate and filled with volcanoes, and there was another planet which is like the 1950s, but it was millions of years in the past, and they were overpopulated. They got these planes and they froze people in ice, and then they went to this desolate planet and shot them into the volcanoes. That is how life on earth began.
It's completely batshit bananas.
You couldn't make that up.
Well, you couldn't unless you're L. Ron Hubbard. It really is a case of him throwing shit at a wall and seeing what kind of wacky shapes he can get out of it. I guess, like, after you've come up with that many sci-fi stories and they just keep getting stranger and weirder. And he's already a completely deranged, unhinged individual. It only makes sense that this is what he kind of came up with as the basis for his religion. It just seems so surreal and strange that this works and people are completely willing to give away all of their money and their property and to be a part of this. It's because they piggyback off so many things that are real. Like just the name itself, Scientology, it's based on psychiatry, but then they've twisted it. It's so geniusly done. And that's why it seems like a parody, but it's not. It's done intentionally. It's both scary and impressive.
He was originally going to get like a psychology diploma or whatever the word is. He wants to be recognized by actual psychologists. But then when he doesn't get it, when none of the actual intellectuals have no idea what he's talking about, he's like, oh, it's not actually psychology. It's this new thing that I've made up. Most people who joined, like especially in the early days, weren't under the impression they were joining a religion per se, but more of like a mindfulness sort of thing. They had that spin-off thing where they would go to sea on this old decrepit boat and they'd do sort of ocean things. I don't know. It wasn't really clear what they were doing other than renovating this boat for L. Ron Hubbard himself. A lot of it seems to be like unpaid or cheap labor.
And that was something he used to manipulate people, wasn't it? Like that woman who he told that he'd become blind and crippled because he was this naval war hero. And but then Scientology had taught him how to cure all of his ailments and everything, when all of that was completely bullshit and all he got was tinnitus and conjunctivitis. A couple, something like that. But I remember they sounded pretty groovy together. It was a nice rhyming coupling.
Yeah. They had people they said to them, oh, you're not doing enough for the religion. And then they had them work 20 something hours a day. It was a ridiculous amount of time. I think the woman said she had to sleep for 3 hours on the roof on an old mattress while she was pregnant. And she had no idea why she was doing it.
It's a real testament to how easy it is for people to fall into a belief system and just kind of get entangled and trapped in it. Scientology itself makes it impossible for people to get out of.
Yeah, because they've got this secret police kind of thing. They send people to their house and just harass them. They'd like go to people's mum's house and people's wives' houses to just sort of like just stare at them. They wouldn't really do anything. They just follow people around and make them think they were always being watched. Right at the end of the movie, there was like white screen that said, we tried to get in contact with these people who are still in the church, but they declined. And one of those names on the list is John Travolta.
Considering it was like a Travoltathon thing, I thought that he was going to be like actually interviewed or something like that. But there are clips of him speaking in it.
Yeah, from maybe about 20 years ago. He's got that Lucky Numbers look about him in this old archival footage. And he's talking about how much he loves his Scientology. He's like, oh, I've never heard of another religion that's against crime. I think most of them are. They pounced on him very early on in his career. He didn't have much confidence in himself. And he joined Scientology for the confidence. He did like a Cheerios advert or something.
They kind of made him think that it was Scientology that had got him into all of these roles and stuff. And
what's his excuse nowadays? That he's not got a career and he's just doing Gotti and the Fanatic?
I guess he's just used to it by this point. But it is interesting because he's nowhere near as bad as Tom Cruise. He definitely defends Scientology a lot, like when he's asked about it. But it seems like there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Like the thing, who was that girl called? What was she called? Like Spanky or something?
Spanky Taylor. She was John Travolta's like assistant secretary, whatever, within Scientology.
She had a kid.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they were doing horrible stuff with this kid. It was left in a cot that was just kind of soaked in piss and there was flies everywhere and the kid's eyes were kind of like glued shut with mucus and it was just like horrible stuff. And Travolta himself said, I can't believe that you've been going along with this and you can't do this anymore. He doesn't think it's right what's going on inside the church. But then in all of his public appearances and everything, he has nothing but praise. Because of how intimate the kind of sessions are with the reading and everything, they make you confess so much stuff that they really have you by the balls. They're creeping up behind you, slowly bringing their hands around your bollocks. You're not going anywhere without leaving your testicles behind.
They say in the film there were rumors that he was going to leave after he found out what happened to his friend. And the two prongs that are coming at him that are forcing him to stay in Scientology. Number one, they can protect him from all the stuff that has been in the news about him. And then the second one, Scientology can leak the things about him that he has said in his auditing sessions.
I think he really does believe that they could take everything that he holds dear away from him. Like this one guy who quit Scientology and he's not been able to speak with any of his family ever again. There's the kind of association there that everything you love is being given to you by Scientology, because without it, it would be taken away.
He has been in Scientology for, well, since the 70s. At this point, he's in too deep. I'm pretty sure he is completely with Scientology now and truly believes everything that he's being fed. And I think the sad part about all of this is that if he were to leave the church now, he would kind of be seen as like a hero.
Surely he'd realize this. And that leads me to think they must have more dirt on him than these kind of gay allegations.
I don't think he knows. And I think at this point, he doesn't believe he has any reason to leave.
Tom Cruise in this is creepy as hell. He reminds me a lot of American Psycho, if you've ever seen it. His movements and his but Scientology.
And it doesn't even seem like he's putting on an act or anything. It does seem like he's genuinely like this.
Miscavige is the leader, obviously, and then Tom Cruise is like their biggest asset. But them two together, they do seem to get along, and they have the same kind of character traits and everything.
Miscavige can protect Tom Cruise's career, and Tom Cruise, as a well-known, trusted celebrity, can protect the Church of Scientology.
David Miscavige himself takes the wheel after L. Ron Hubbard. The kind of stuff that he does is fully insane person, psychopath, manipulation, torturing people, making people torture themselves to just display how invested they are and with the religion and with him. And
he's literally the guy from Saw.
And that whole thing with the musical chairs where he'd play Bohemian Rhapsody, making people fight to stay in a place where he would torture them because he'd got them that deeply invested. It's so twisted. It's like comic book villain stuff.
It wasn't in any of L. Ron Hubbard's books. It wasn't in any of his teachings. All this like more sadistic ways of keeping people in the church is completely different from what was going on before he was in charge. One of the weirdest things that Miscavige did was intentionally try and break up Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, because Nicole Kidman was not a Scientologist.
What I thought was even worse was when they took this young girl, they like removed her braces and they did this makeover and stuff, and they were telling her it was to help her integrate with Scientology and stuff, but really they were designing her to be Tom Cruise's new girlfriend. That's so fucked up. And they dyed her hair to match Tom Cruise's hair color. She already had a boyfriend at the time and everything.
It does show Tom Cruise as more of a villain.
Like my gut feeling is he wasn't too involved, because what it is Miscavige putting in a lot of effort to try to appease Tom Cruise.
But I feel like how would this woman have been presented to him? Because how would? Because if it's just David Miscavige showing up at the door like, oh, we've got you this new girlfriend. Yeah. I don't feel like there is a way in which these two could have met other than him knowing that she was like a Scientology plant.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because I think it was Tom Cruise himself had said, I'm looking for a girlfriend or something. A boyfriend-free girl aged 18 to 21 who watches anime. The fact that it was this one specific girl, that's got to raise some alarm bells. Why would it be her unless like Tom Cruise himself has pointed
her out? Yeah. There's also their fair game rule. Anyone who insults the church is fair game. Like in the eyes of the church, they can do anything. They sent people to this guy's house and they poisoned and killed his dog, which is super messed up.
Yeah. Actually, you know what, Murph? You know what? I think when you're editing this, go back. Every time that I say that's bad or that's messed up, replace it with this clip. That's great. Just to cover our asses.
No, I'll do it. That's amazing. That's stupendous. Yeah. Holy cow, I love Scientology. I want to give David Miscavige a blowjob.
Okay.
Not a lot of people know this, but L. Ron Hubbard was a black man. His real name was L. Ron Hoya Bembe.
I'm not quite sure where you're going with this.
It's an Eric Andre reference.
Oh, right. I didn't get it. Should I just laugh now and then? Oh, yes, that's an Eric Andre reference. That
I knew you'd get it, Ethan.
That's great. I love Scientology.
I want to give David Miscavige a hug.
I want to give Eric Andre oral sex. On Thursday. A lot of the stuff that was good about this was pretty much just handed to them by the fact that there's just so much shit to talk about. What it did well was all the stuff about L. Ron Hubbard's past, which I wasn't too clued up on. Considering I've seen other documentaries on Scientology and stuff, I'm not going to make that as a point against it, though.
It didn't feel like it covered anything up, and it seemed to be very well researched. Like the amount of people they talked to, it must have been like 7 or 8, maybe even more different perspectives, and I felt it was very well made. Like there were lots of edits where I was like, oh, that's a good way of showing what's going on. Like the musical chairs scene, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I would. I'd probably give it a 7, I think.
What do you have to say about Travolta in this?
They said that they contacted him to talk about it and everything, and he didn't want to, so I'm not going to give him any money for that.
I liked when he almost stood up for his friend, but then he didn't. I'm going to give him £1.50.
What will we be watching next time?
Yeah, let's do Wild Hogs. Well, until next time.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Travolta, feel depressing, big story.